I read the news so that you don't have to. Have you heard about neo-mercantilism and why it might be dangerous? So this headline says the dangerous triumph of neo-mercantilism. And I thought, well, why don't I explain what mercantilism is, what neo-mercantilism is, and why it might be dangerous? So very briefly, dominant economic doctrine in Europe from the 16th to 18th century. We're not going to get historical because I think I'm going to lose some of you and I don't want to. So think of it this way. It's a zero-sum economic theory. It basically says you win, I lose, I win, you lose. Oh, and neo-mercantilism is just the same thing for the 21st century. Now, some of the key ideas on this, I think some of you are going to go, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with that. So let's look at the key ideas. That is that you export more than you import, that you protect domestic industries, and that the government controls the trade and economic policy. And on the surface of it, I know some of you are like, oh, that's fine. What's wrong with that? Let me tell you what. The problem is that mercantilism isn't really about trade. It's about control. And I know I've not convinced all of you, but stick around and see if I can. Okay, so zooming out and let's zoom back in and we're going to go to one industry. We're not going to look at the whole economy. We're going to look at one. We're going to look at music industry. In this microsystem, you're going to see why this may not be such a good thing. So say we have this big music mogul, some dragon, okay? Puff the Magic Dragon. Let's call him Puffy because for legal reasons, any resemblance this analogy has to actual living or dead persons is purely coincidental. Anyway, our dragon, Puffy, operates their music empire in a way that controls the talent, it controls the distribution, and controls the narrative, and it frames rivals as enemies rather than peers. So if we now zoom out, we replace the artists with industries, we replace the record labels with governments, and we replace the chart battles with trade balances, and that's what we have is neo-mercantilism. Even the gatekeeping of markets, which is something that's present in mercantilism, is something that we can see in the music industry. So for example, in the neo-mercantilism, restrict who can trade. Routes, access, and distribution are controlled, and the government decide who makes it to market. What does that look like in music? Radio access. Who has control over distribution? Who gets access to industry relationships and who gets sidelined and who gets promoted? Neo-mercantilism is when countries treat the global economy like a rat beef. For them, exports equal dominance, imports equal weakness, trade surpluses equal power, and other countries' success is a threat. So what does that look like in the world today? China floods the world with cheap exports, controls the supply. The US slaps tariffs and subsidies on strategic industries, that's the gatekeeping. And Europe builds up their regulatory walls, that is the protectionism. Different styles, same mindset. Listen, mercantilism, whether it's in trade wars, whether it's in pet empires, whether it's in the music business, always claims it's about strength, but at the base of it, it's about fear of losing control. And that's why historically it's always ended the same way, not in dominance, but in breakdown.